2024, and the time is 2:24 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I apologize for not giving anybody any heads up that I was going live, but nowadays I'm just trying to go live whenever I can. I tried to go live a couple of times. I bought another computer. This would have been my fourth or fifth one. I think my fifth one in a few months, but that computer wouldn't allow me to log on. It was brand new, and it said something about it can't get beyond the firewall or something. So I don't know what it is, but every computer that I get, I've been having issues with. I have issues either with the computer or the internet. So that's why I'm here coming to you live from my phone, and I didn't get to give you all much notice, but welcome. It is Tuesday again, October 22nd, 2024, and the time is 2:24 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Today is the day of the BRICS Summit. That's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and that coalition that coalesced against the United States Incorporated and the Federal Reserve Central Banking System to drop the United States dollar and go for trade. So that conference is today through the 24th. And as I've told many of you before, it's no coincidence that it's happening right during the Hebrew Feast of Harvest. The Feast of Harvest is also called Sukkot. It's a celebration of God's providence and his protective care and provision, which is amazing because this is why the Baltic Moors or Baltimore Ravens won against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, whose symbol is the pirate on last night. All this works together. Again, this is the Feast of Harvest. I am Hebrew. I'm from the Hebraic bloodline, and I've kept the Hebrew festivals or feast days since I was a child. And those feast days are prescribed in Leviticus, the 23rd chapter in the Old Testament of the Bible. And right now we're in the highest, holiest time of the year for we Hebrew people. It kicked off this month with in October, which we call Tishrei 1, where we had Rosh Hashanah on October the 2nd, and Rosh Hashanah was the Feast of Trumpets. If you recall, I told you on the Feast of Trumpets that this is the beginning of a time where we're about to celebrate joy, peace, harvest, prosperity, and abundance because it's harvest season. So we kicked off the season October the 2nd with the Feast of Trumpets. We blew the trumpets or the shofar, which for us, a shofar is blown to make an announcement, to announce the king, to announce a new moon, a new season, a festival, to announce war. And I said, this is why Trump Pence ran in 2016, because he was the trumpet blown in Zion to announce a war against the deep state. He was the trumpet alerting that we were going to battle against the nefarious beings that coalesce against we, the people, and enslaving the planet. He is the trumpet that was selected by the military to take down the deep state and to tear down the central banking system. So check in, family. Let us know where you're hailing from. I'm just going to keep going in because I don't want to bore your time or take up too much of your time. So trumpet is the trumpet in Zion that was blown. So we blow the trumpets, we Hebrew people, during Tishrei, the 7th month, which correlates, during this time around October. And we had a feast that represents, a calling in of God, his army battling against the deep state or battling against our enemies. It is also allegedly the time in the Old Testament when Moses received the 10 Commandments. So this is why we keep the Feast of Trumpets. And in the New Testament, it represents a time where you're supposed to ascend to heaven, where Christ would come back and reap those who the harvest season, reap those souls who have done well, who have lived a righteous life. And you're supposed to be translated, or your body be changed from a human physical form to a heavenly body. So this is what we were taught growing up. But for us in this time period, what the Feast of Trumpets represents is when you're ascend not to a physical heaven, but you ascend in consciousness into third to fourth, fifth, sixth, and higher dimensions. You will ascend, and your body, your physical body, will be translated or transformed, glory, hallelujah, from this physical being to a crystalline body. So this is the era into which we are going, and we've been celebrating this for all of my life, and for most of my life, and all of my children, all of their lives, and for the Hebrew people, all of their existence, allegedly. So you blow the trumpet or the shofar, Tishrei during a new moon, there's that new moon means there's no moon, and during this time you celebrate the new year, and we say it's called Rosh Hashanah. Feast of Trumpets, Rosh Hashanah happened October the 2nd. Then I told you guys, I said 10 days after the blowing of the trumpets, you have 10 days of repentance where you're supposed to go to your family, friends, and anybody that you've offended and make it right. And that time between the Feast of Trumpets and 10 days will lead up to the Day of Atonement. So those 10 days of awe, 10 days of repentance, you are making amends with people that you've offended. And I said, what's happening is you're having mass arrests during that, because our 10 days of repentance correlates with the deep state's 10 days of darkness. So I made that announcement October the 2nd. I said, you're going to see something major happen during those 10 days. And what happened? We saw hurricanes, we saw fires, we saw a flooding of North Carolina. And why was that happening? Unfortunately, we had catastrophes and casualties of war, but what was happening, they were flooding out those deep underground tunnels. They were flooding and bombing up things going on beneath the surface, and bombing things going on behind the mountains, because not only did you have deep underground military bases where children were being harvested and the other nefarious things were happening, but also you had these beings that are non-human or non-human or human hybrids that were hiding underground, that were hiding behind the mountains. So they're bombing those places and flooding them out in order to get those beings out of there. So if you hear in coming days or coming weeks that they're going to have an emergency broadcast system announcement and they tell you to stay indoors, it's important for us to listen, because while they're flooding out these deep underground military bases and they're bombing these places in order to minimize the calamities, they may ask people to stay indoors so they can continue to bomb out those things. And when those beings come out, they can arrest them, annihilate them, nuke them, however, send energy weapons to them, and you and I won't be in the crosshair. So that's why it's important when the military says, or the National Guard says, be indoors, you need to. So October the 2nd, Feast of Trumpets, which is also Rosh Hashanah, the new year. We say Shana Tova, Happy New Year. Right? October the 2nd, that happened, correlates to the Hebrew calendar, Tishrei, the 7th month. After that, 10 days of repentance, 10 days of awe, 10 days of darkness for the deep state. During those 10 days, hurricanes, flooding, bombings. So you might have seen like both the white hats and the black hats doing things. So it was really crazy during that time period, but we know that it happened for a reason. After those 10 days, it led to the Day of Atonement, which happened on October the 12th. I said 10 days of repentance. You get yourself right. You go to your neighbors. You ask for forgiveness. You acknowledge your wrongdoing, and you ask how you can make it right, and you make it right, because that led up to the Day of Atonement. Atonement, at one mentality or mind with God, the creator, source, the universe, consciousness, your highest self. So during the Day of Atonement, we fast as Hebrew people for 24 hours, no food, no water, no drink. And for those who don't fast, who don't do a literal fast for 24 hours, they at least meditate and contemplate how they can get their lives right with God, with the creator, with source, with the most high, with the universe, the multiverse, with your ancestors. So for those 24 hours on October the 12th, through the 13th, people were fasting 24 hours, getting themselves right with God, and they have already gotten themselves right with humans. And the reason why you take that time between the Feast of Trumpets and the Day of Atonement to get yourself right with each other is because the scripture says, and there's a basic principle, that there's no way you can get yourself right with a being or God or source who you do not see, but you can't even live right with the people every day whom you see every day. First, get yourself right with the people in your lives. Okay, the scripture says, if you're bringing a gift to the altar and you're praying and you're talking to God, and you know you've offended somebody, or you think, or there's a possibility, leave your gift at that altar. Don't talk to source, to God, the creator, to ancestors, knowing full well we haven't gotten ourselves right with each other. Leave your gift at the altar and then go and make it right with each other. So that's what we were doing during those 10 days. And then on the Day of Atonement, we get right with God. We we repent, we turn our minds away from the things that we used to do. We turn away from, we ask God for forgiveness, and we ask to make it right. Okay. So that occurred October the 12th. And then I told you all a few days after that, October the 16th through the 23rd is what? Sukkot, Sukkot, which is the Feast of Harvest for Hebrew people. But it's the Feast of Harvest or harvest celebration or time of reaping for everybody all across the planet, through all ethnicities, throughout all nationalities, throughout all time period. This is harvest season where you celebrate the providence and provision of God, where you celebrate the protective care of God, where you celebrate the time where you reap the hard work, the harvest, the fruit, the vegetables from your hard work that you've done all year. And I told you, this is why children would take summer break from school, because they were preparing for harvest season. They would take a break from learning to help their family members till the ground and get ready for harvest. So we had Sukkot between October the 16th through the 23rd. This is a high holy day, 7 days of feasting, 7 days of acknowledging God's providence, 7 days of acknowledging God for provision and protection. As Hebrew people, we acknowledge that God provided for us. When you think about the alleged story that happened in the Bible, when we were in the wilderness. The wilderness represents a time of being tried, being tested. After we allegedly came out of alleged slavery, and I say alleged because the Bible says this, records this, but there's no other documents that in history that say Hebrew people were enslaved to the Egyptians. So I'm just telling you the story. When the Hebrew people were enslaved in Egypt, Moses rose up as the prophet to lead the people out of slavery. Remember? And God told him to go to Pharaoh and say, let my people go. So once we came out of slavery, we were supposed to go into the promised land. Just like right now, we're coming out of physical, mental, financial, spiritual slavery, going into the promised land, or the fifth dimension and higher dimensions. But you had to go through a time of testing. So the children of Israel came out of Egypt. Remember, God did 10 plagues while they were in Egypt, coming out, and Moses led them into the wilderness on their way to the promised land. But because they were complaining, because they were murmuring and mocking God, and not acknowledging his provision while they were in slavery, not acknowledging the blessing that they were about to come out, they complained all that time in the wilderness. It was only supposed to be a 3 days journey that they were there before they go into the promised land, which is the land of milk and honey, or Canaan land. But no, they're complaining, they're murmuring, they're bickering, they're chiding, they're making fun and mockery of the prophet that God has sent, which is Moses. Okay, so God said that 3 days journey, I'm gonna turn it into 40 years. So 40 years they traversed through the wilderness. But while they were in the wilderness, God provided for them. While they were in the wilderness, their shoes didn't wear thin. While they were in the wilderness, their clothes didn't fall off. While they were in the wilderness, God provided food. While they were in the wilderness, God protected them. While they were in the wilderness, God spoke to them through the prophet Moses. While they were in the wilderness, they could still see the vision that one day they will reach the promised land. Can I get an amen, somebody? They still knew in their souls, those who were righteous, that God would bring them out into the promised land, the land flowing with milk and honey. It was supposed to be a 3 days journey, but it lasted 40 years. And the older people didn't even get to make it because of their complaining, but their children made it into the promised land. But while they were in the wilderness, they cried out to Moses, we need food. At least when we were in slavery, Pharaoh gave us food. At least when we were in slavery, we had housing. What are you going to do for us, Moses? So Moses cried out to God, and God sent down manna from high. Manna was it was like a unleavened bread that would melt in your mouth. Manna is was literally determined to mean, what is it? Because they didn't know what it was. It was a wafer that would melt in their mouth. Now, in today's time, we know that monoatomic gold is that manna that the people ate. in the wilderness when they were when they were traversing through there on their way to the promised land. So monoatomic gold is something that I ingest, not every day, but I take it because it's supposed to cleanse your pineal gland. It helps you have psychedelic powers. It helps you see. It helps you sleep better. It raises your vibrations and your consciousness, which is another reason why gold, silver, and precious metals are important, not just because it's used as money, but because your body actually resonates with it when you wear it, when you have it around you, and it raises your vibrational frequencies. So they ate manna, they ate quail, they were sustained while they were in the wilderness. Now, we call the Feast of Harvest, in which we're living in right now between October the 16th and 23rd, Sukkot, because Sukkot means booths. It is not only the Feast of Harvest, but it's also called the Feast of Booths. Why? Because when we were in the wilderness, the men would build up a temporary housing made out of branches, different trees from the forest. Remember, they were in the wilderness. They created a temporary dwelling for all of the people to stay in while they were in the wilderness to protect them from the wild, to protect them from the elements. So we, during the Feast of Booths or during the Feast of Harvest between October 16th and the 23rd, every year, no matter what time, usually around the October period during Tishrei, we commemorate or remember how God provided for us while we were living in the wilderness, and we had to have a temporary house called a booth, B-O-O-T-H. So even until this day, Hebraic people who still commemorate the feast, and my family members and friends from all over America and different parts of the world still build a temporary booth. The men go out, they get the branches, they chop them down, and they put them together. They use nails, hammers, whatever, and they provide excuse me, people are texting me. They create a temporary housing or temporary dwelling, and they commemorate the time God took care of them and provided for them and protected them and provided protective care while they were in the wilderness, while they were in that time period where it was a time period of uncertainty, while they were battling the elements, while they were contemplating how we're going to make it to the promised land, the land flowing with milk and honey. In today's time period, we're in a wilderness experience. We've come out of slavery. We've been through financial, spiritual, emotionally, physical, all type of slavery. And we're looking forward to the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and higher dimensions. We're looking forward to peace, prosperity, sovereignty, and abundance. But we're in our wilderness experience trying to reconcile how we're going to get there and making amends with each other, making amends with God, cleaning out our houses, cleaning out our emotions, getting our hearts right and ready, because everybody won't go. Just like during the Hebraic time, all the people did not go to the promised land. They were tried, they were tested, and some of them failed the test, and some of them died because the time just passed through those 40 years. Some of them weren't worthy. Some of them just went through a natural time of death because it was their time. So during the Feast of Harvest right now, October the 16th to 23rd, we commemorate or remember God's provision. We remember God's protective care. So what I told everybody, the 1st of October, I said, Rosh Hashanah, or the Feast of Trumpets, is significant during this time because Trump is that trumpet in Zion, and he's about to come back roaring like a lion, declaring his victory. And then I said, you're going to have 10 days of repentance, 10 days of awe. Get your hearts right with your neighbors like we do during this feast period. Then that will lead to the Day of Atonement. I say, get then that on October the 12th and 13th, get your heart right with the Most High, with consciousness, with the ancestors, with your highest self. Because we're about to go into a harvest season. And I said October the 16th through the 23rd, you're going to have a feast of harvest. You're going to reap benefits. You're going to see a lot of financial news come out. That's what I told you. So it just so happens that yesterday, during the Feast of Harvest, the Baltimore Ravens played a game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, whose symbol is the Pirates. And when my friend told me that the Baltimore Ravens were going to battle or do a game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I said, Baltimore is going to win. If you look on my Facebook page, you'll see before they even started, before there was a score, I said the Baltimore Ravens will win because everything the deep state does, they do in codes. And I said, My Facebook page is DRKIA, one word, space PRUITT. That's DRKIA space PRUITT. That's my personal page. My professional page is DR period space KIA space PRUITT. So Dr. Kia is one word on my professional page, space Pruitt. My personal page, and then Dr. space DR space KIA space PRUITT is my professional page. You'll see I said the Baltimore Ravens is going to win because all the sports are rigged. And what happens is the corporation is a dead entity, so they don't speak. The way they communicate is through codes. So I said the Baltimore Ravens will win. The Baltic Moors. The Baltic Moors, remember the Baltic Sea, that's over, I believe, in Europe. The Moors are the copper-colored people that are here in America. They are called the Moors because Moor just means black or tawny or something like that, or dark-skinned. So I said the Baltic Moors, the Baltic Moor Ravens are going to win against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because it's time, the time out for pirates, the time for the pirates is gone. I said, so the Baltic Moors represent the Moorish people or the organic people on the line, the original copper-colored people on the planet. It's their time to rise back up because they've been enslaved by these negative entities who masqueraded as humans, and they blended in with the people, and they put in our Caucasian brothers and sisters all over the world to be over us, in order to cause division against the so-called races so that we can fight against each other when the real enemy are these negative ETs, these extraterrestrial beings who pit us against each other. So I said the Baltimore Ravens represents the Baltic Moors, or just the Moors, the chiefs on the land, who now their time has come back. No more enslavement, no more oppressing them, no more suppressing them. Okay, not only do they suppress us, they suppress everybody all over the planet. But hear me out. I said the ravens is a symbol that, you can look it up, represents God's providence, God's protective care. The raven also represents an intelligent animal. It represents prophecy. It represents insight. It represents the third eye. It represents transformation. So the Moors, Moors, have to win the game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Why? Because pirating time is over. What do pirates do? Pirates steal. And that's what I said on my Facebook page. Pirates steal, or they appropriate, or they reproduce the work of another people or another person for profit without permission. So these beings and people that were put in power, that were pirating and stealing from us, we the people, and from the Aboriginal people, their time is over. They've reproduced the work of, they've stolen, they take all the glory and all the claim for patents, Elon Musk, all the glory and all the claim for all of this, these technical things, when really all they did is they got it from the original people, did some reverse engineering, and they've gotten all the praise for something that they've stolen. Well, the time is up. The piracy is up. And this is why the Baltic Moors, or the Moors, won the game, because all games are rigged and they're communicating with each other saying our time is up. Okay, so pitting the races against each other is up, but also suppressing the history of all people, and particularly the people of the Moors, the copper-colored people here in America and all over the world, lying to us and say we came from slave ships. That time is up. They have to tell the truth. So that's why the Baltic Moors won. And that's why I said, if I was a betting woman, I'd win this one. This is why the Chiefs won the Super Bowl against the Eagles a couple years ago, and why they won against the 49ers, because the Chiefs on the land are now in power. The dynamic is shifting. So what you're going to see during the Feast of Harvest is a lot of financial news coming out, a lot of global news about abundance, about wealth. And that's why just a day or two ago, you'll see an article, and if I can put it on my community page, I'll show you, where it said that Saudi Arabia is amassing gold in preparation of the global currency reset. When have you ever seen mainstream media Or these big sources talk about the global currency reset. We over here been talking about it for years. And now they saying Saudi Arabia are amassing gold to themselves in preparation for the global currency reset. That article just came out a day or two ago during the Feast of Harvest. Why is that important? Because we're having right now the BRICS summit, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. They're meeting, they're having a conference to announce, whether publicly, during soft disclosure or hard disclosure, that the dollar is dead, that they've destroyed the fiat-based system, and now unveiling their new payment system that is not controlled by the central banking system or the Federal Reserve or the United States Incorporated. They are unveiling the BRICS coalition and all 209 countries that agreed to join BRICS or to work with BRICS through Project Sandman to destroy the dollar. They are unveiling their new payment system right now during this conference. And that is a soft disclosure that's saying the dollar is done, the central banking system is done. It's over for them. This is happening right now during the Feast of Harvest. So while BRICS is meeting, Saudi Arabia announced that they're amassing lots of gold to themselves in preparation of the global currency reset to completely destroy the dollar. So the prophecy that I gave was right on par to expect great financial news during the Feast of Harvest. And it's not over yet. The Feast of Harvest ends on October, I believe it's the eve of October. It's October the 23rd. So it's the 16th through the 23rd. I think by the nighttime is when the Feast of Harvest is over. The BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India summit, Brazil, Russia, India, China summit conference ends on the 24th, the day after the Feast of Harvest. But what's interesting is all while I was growing up, some people celebrated the Feast of Harvest 7 days, and some people interpret the scripture to celebrate it 8 days. So there was always some discrepancy coming up, when I was growing up. Is it 7 days or is it 8 days? It depends on how you interpret the scripture. Well, if you celebrate it 8 days, then the Feast of Harvest is over October the 24th, which is the end of the BRICS coalition. So why am I mentioning BRICS? Because Project Sandman stated that when triggered, 209 countries have already agreed to drop the dollar when triggered for trade and start using gold and silver to trade. They will start using gold and silver and their local currencies backed by gold and silver for trade when triggered. What was that trigger? That trigger was when Vladimir Putin went to Ukraine to clean out the underground military bases, get rid of all and expose all of those entities that were down there, and expose all the harvesting that was going on of drugs, children, people, and et cetera, et cetera. When Vladimir Putin went to the Ukraine, he not only cleaned it out, but he was bringing back the Ukraine back under the Soviet Union, back under his territory. So now the Ukraine is no longer a nation state, as well as Israel is no longer a nation state, because Israel was given to the Rothschild family by the Vatican, by the Pope and the British Crown around, the early 1900s. So Israel, the state of Israel, was given to the Rothschild family because the Pope said they needed a place to seek refuge. But these people, the Rothschild family and the alleged Jews, were not Jews. They're Khazarian mafia. The Khazars come from Europe, I believe, but they're not Hebrew. So that nation state is no longer there. It's being decimated. Is declared no longer there, as well as the so-called nation state of the Ukraine. So let me go back. According to Project Sandman, I was the first person that I know of in this space that talked about Project Sandman. Now people are talking about it. But it was not because I'm smart. It's just because I was led to see that by whoever is watching me, the creator. 209 nations agreed behind the scenes to, when trigger, drop the dollar for trade, according to Project Sandman. Vladimir Putin was the trigger. He went to the Ukraine. He declared war. He brought that nation state back under his the umbrella of the Union. He cleaned out the deep underground military bases. He exposed Biden and all of these presidential people and entertainers who were trading and and doing things with children and doing those deep underground military bases, who were laundering money. He sent some of that information to James Comer, who is the chair of the House Oversight Committee. And you can go to oversight.house.gov right now, or just type in Google House Oversight Committee, and you'll find all the evidence against Joseph Robinette Biden and the Biden crime family. Well, Vladimir Putin discovered a lot of that. Well, he already knew that, and he uncovered it. So the clapback was, Biden said, since you're going to, rat me out, I'm going to put sanctions on you. So he put sanctions on Vladimir Putin for going over to the Ukraine and exposing all those things. Vladimir Putin was not moved or fazed by the fact that Biden put sanctions on him. So Biden made a big deal about it and told everybody not to trade with Vladimir Putin, stay away from him, shun him. We're going to put financial, economic sanctions on him. But the ultimate clapback from Putin, the president of Russia, who cleaned out the Ukraine and exposed all the dirt that was going on in Ukraine, was to say, I don't need y'all I don't need the United States dollar. You can put sanctions on me. And what he did was he started trading with his own currency, the Russian ruble. This was in 2022. And that's why, fact check me, in 2022, the Russian ruble was the highest and the strongest performing currency in the whole world, because his clapback, speaking of Vladimir Putin, from those Biden putting sanctions on him, was to use his own Russian ruble for trade and to circumvent the United States dollar altogether. Then Vladimir Putin led the Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa coalition called BRICS to do the same, to stop trading with the dollar and to trade with their own local currencies and or gold and silver. They were able to do that because BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, were all in alignment with the Russian leader, Vladimir Putin. And they had already repatriated their gold and artifacts and wealth back from the Vatican. So they were prepared to use their own currency backed by silver and gold and other precious metals, and or use just outright gold for trade. So Putin was the trigger. What is Project Sandman? Behind the scenes, 209 nations agreed that when triggered, they would drop the dollar. Vladimir Putin was the trigger when he went to the Ukraine. Then Biden put sanctions on him. Then Vladimir Putin did the ultimate clapback, said, I don't need your dollar. He dropped it and started using his own Russian ruble for trade. It became the strongest performing currency in the world. Then he led Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, the whole coalition to do the same. They dropped the dollar, and then one by one, nations joined BRICS. But the first nation to join BRICS and dropping the dollar for trade was Saudi Arabia. That was monumental. And I said this 2 or 3 years ago, I think 2 years ago now, I said Saudi Arabia will be monumental in destroying the dollar. It looked like I didn't know what I was talking about. But I know that what gave the dollar reserve currency status was our agreement with Saudi Arabia to protect the Saudi kingdom in exchange for oil. And then we would force all exporting nations to get oil from Saudi Arabia only and to use the United States dollar to do so. That is what made the petrodollar so powerful, and what made them the world leader and gave us world reserve currency status. And that is what made the United States Incorporated a boss, and the Federal Reserve central banking system empowered to print as much money as they wanted, to go around bullying all nations and saying, oh, you want to use your own currency for trade? We'll just demolish your economy through war or put sanctions on you. And when they demolished these countries through war and or sanctions, these countries' currencies plummeted. But these evil people in power, the gangster banksters, the bankers, the corporate entities, many of these major corporations and presidents all over the world, once the United States Incorporated would send their military to these countries and decimate their economies because they didn't want to play along and use the United States dollar, these wicked people saw the currencies devalue exponentially through war, through decimation of their economy. And so they would go in, buy up the currencies while the currencies were devalued. And while the United States were playing both sides and financing the war on both sides and bring down the currencies, they would buy up their currencies while they had devalued, and then they will hold them. So that after the war, when the United States would go back into those countries and rebuild it up, the country's currencies would go back up in value, and those entities, presidents all over the world, banking CEOs, corporate heads who held those currencies now would go to the bank and get a high exchange rate once those currencies revalued. Okay, well, we, the people, didn't know about that, but the creator, the ancestors, the galactic beings who are here to help us have trickled down the information for us to know so that we too can reap the harvest. We too can reap abundance. We too can benefit from the global currency reset and the revaluation of currencies, which is just a reinstatement of a currency's value back to its normal value based on the resources that each country has. So remember, the country's resources were stolen and put in the Vatican, stolen by the Pope, stolen by the Queen, stolen through, war. But countries through Project Sandman agreed to, when triggered, we're all going to drop the dollar. We're all first going to repatriate our gold and precious metals and resources back to us and artifacts secretively. And then when it triggered, when Vladimir Putin go over to clean out those deep underground military bases because he's a boss and he's not afraid of these people, he might not even be the real Putin. He might be just a galactic being playing the role of Putin. Who knows? But when triggered, we're all going to drop the dollar for trade and use our own gold, silver, palladium, platinum, and other resources and our own local currencies. So Putin was the first. He led Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa to do that. He could do that because he's Russia, right? Russia is in BRICS. Then Saudi Arabia joined BRICS and it became known as BRICS. So what gave us the world reserve currency, again, for those just joining, is our agreement with the Saudi princes, the Saudi kingdom, to protect their kingdom in exchange for oil, and then force all nations to get oil from Saudi Arabia and use the United States dollar to do so. So now we have petrodollar status. That's what made us have the world reserve currency. Well, when Saudi Arabia joined BRICS a couple years ago, most people didn't know that. I did come on my podcast and said they joined BRICS. It wasn't out yet. And I said they're now known as BRICS. It didn't even become known worldwide until this summer, but I announced that 2 years ago. I actually brought Andy Schectman, the CEO of Miles Franklin, onto my platform to confirm that this is not knowledge, because I knew it. I'd done my research that this was true. So Saudi Arabia joined BRICS. It was called BRICS 2022. At least that's when I found out. Who knows when it really happened behind the scenes. It became known as BRICS. That ended the dollar as the world reserve currency, the United States dollar. That ended financial and economic hegemony for the United States Incorporated. United States Incorporated is separate from America. It is a corporation that enslaved us and usurped or took authority from the American people and from our lawful republic. So when Saudi Arabia joined BRICS secretively years ago, that was the end of the dollar. Okay, then we got news also last year that the contract between America or not America, but the United States and Saudi Arabia was not renewed. I think that was in June, like June 29th, June 19th or something, 2024. When that contract was not renewed, people start waking up and say, oh my God, the contract wasn't renewed. Oh, something big has happened. I say, yeah, we told you that Saudi Arabia was huge in decimating the dollar. They joined BRICS first and became known as BRICS. And then after Saudi Arabia joined BRICS, nation by nation joined the BRICS coalition, and they were called BRICS Plus. And when I made that announcement 2 years ago, I said 85% of the world population have secretively joined BRICS. And then I came back a few months later and said all 209 nations, all exporting nations have secretively joined BRICS, but they're only going to trickle out that information little by little, because they don't want us to know what's going on. So fast forward to today, where I'm telling you that just yesterday or the day before, an article came out that says Saudi Arabia is amassing gold to themselves to prepare for the global currency reset. And this is happening during the Feast of Harvest. So the Feast of Harvest, again, commemorates God's protective care, God's providence, God's provision when he provided for all his people all throughout time. But for the Hebrew people, it's when he provided protective care, providence, provision, and protection when we were in the wilderness after we had come out of slavery, transversing through the wilderness, proving ourselves, and we were on our way to the promised land. Today, this is the Feast of Harvest right now. Starting on the 16th, we're coming to the end, the 23rd or the 24th, depending on how you translate the Bible, Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. We're almost at the end at the Feast of Harvest. This is why financial news has to come out during harvest season. It's not over. You're going to hear more and more information to come out about financial news. BRICS should make some type of announcement, but whether they make it or not, I'm already telling you, they're unveiling their new payment system. Okay, they've already talked about it, but now they're unveiling it to the conference and hopefully to the world. Their payment system will rival the SWIFT system, which is owned and controlled by the central banking system and the United States Incorporated. This system, payment system, will be used by all peoples all over the world. It rivals the SWIFT banking system, the SWIFT payment system, and it will in itself completely decimate the United States dollar. Okay, so this financial news is coming out right during harvest, and I'm letting you know that this is really a time to be excited. It's a time to prepare your heart, your mind, and your soul to receive the blessing. Now, you might have to go through a little more time period of being tried or tested. It might get a little harder. I can't predict whether or not it's going to get harder, but some people are saying it will. But you're preparing for the harvest, to reap the harvest. So keep a positive mentality as much as you can. Go ahead and get you some beans and rice or canned goods or however you prepare. Not just your hearts and minds, but your household. Get your house in order. Get your finances in order. However, whatever that means for you, because you might have to go through a little more testing time, because if we have an emergency broadcast system announcement, or if the deep state continues to fight back as they destroy these beings that are in the deep underground military bases and up in the mountains. Who knows? These beings might try to run out into the street. I don't know. I'm just saying, who knows what they're going to do? Hopefully they've gotten most of them out. Or if they continue to rescue the children on there at the same time, they will bring out some other news that will cause people to, get up in an uproar. Like they might announce the Brunson brother case against Nancy Pelosi, Joseph Robinette Biden, Kamala Harris, 385 members of Congress, and they might come out and talk about how they participated in making our country and people's countries all over the world a security breach by allowing illegal aliens or migrants to come into their borders. They might announce that, or they might announce what happened in 2020 being fraudulent. Some people will be up in an uproar. So you could have people trying to riot at the same time they're cleaning out all these deep underground military bases. So it could get a little wonky. So if the National Guard tells people to stay in their homes, or if there is an emergency broadcast system announcement, which, by the way, my friend Patience, who's in Atlanta, Georgia, said an emergency broadcast system announcement test was actually tested in I want to say some part of Atlanta, some part of Georgia near Atlanta yesterday or the day before. So if the real emergency broadcast system alert starts to go off, then they may tell us to stay in your houses. There might be some rioting. I don't know. They're going to have some announcements that come out. If that happens, you will have already been prepared. Your heart and your mind and your spirit should be prepared. You already have food in your homes. You already have protection or ammunition, or however you protect yourself. You already have your family informed about what's happening. Which we've heard, there will be a stock market collapse, but if that's about to happen, you will have already prepared your family for that. But the other side of that, the other side of trials, will be the abundance, will be blessing, will be us going into the promised land, will be us ascending to higher dimensions, will be us receiving Nasara, Jasara benefits, the National Economic Security Reformation Act, or the global version of that, the Global Economic Security and Reformation benefits, where there'll be a complete debt jubilee and people will receive lots of money in their quantum accounts, in their accounts that are attached to the quantum financial system. We already have accounts. Don't fall for people saying, oh, contact me or this person to open up your account and pay us money. No, Even if you're getting email that look like, or messages that look like it's me, it's not me. People are masquerading like me and other people to siphon money from you and to steal, because the deep state know their time is up. So they're jacking up the prices. They're, you know, causing like a lot of trouble, making you pay a whole lot of money for everything because it's over for them. So I just want you to be prepared, and I want you to know that we're in the wilderness like the children of Israel were, but we've been enslaved for a long time, and we've had prophets and people that God have used to let us know that this is our time. We've had the biggest trumpet was Trump that the military used, the Trump avatar, the Trump name, the Trump office, the Trump seat. Whether it's the real person or not, they've used his name, his seat. He was the trumpet in Zion. The trumpet has been blown. We have been enslaved. Now we're going through a wilderness experience right before we come into the promised land. So again, the Feast of Harvest is called Sukkot. It's a time, a 7 to 8 day celebration where you're supposed to recognize and commemorate God's providence. This is why the Ravens won. The Baltic Moors, the Moors, the copper-colored people, Moors, Americans. If you look up the 1828 definition, Webster's definition of American, it will say the copper-colored people found here by Christopher Columbus, or Europeans, but now applied to the Europeans. The original definition of American is copper-colored people in this place called Turtle Island, America, Northwest Africa, what they call it, the Northwest Gate. They call it all kind of things. The copper-colored people found here by the Europeans, but now applied to Europeans. Now applied to, okay, talk about pirating. Like they stole, I'm not saying our European brothers and sisters, but the people in power took the identity of the Aboriginal people here in America and all over the planet, lied to them, told them that we're nothing, you never were anything, you were enslaved, you came from a slave ship, you were traded, you were sold to Europeans. Most of that story is bogus. It's a lie when you do deep dives into your own bloodline, your own history. Most of us were already here, and that's why the 1828 Webster's definition of America, or America, look it up, is the copper-colored people found by Europeans, but now applied to Europeans, and now it says we're all Americans. But some people would venture to say that's called identity theft. That's what some people say. I'm not saying that's what some people say. So the pirates who have stolen from people, those people that have siphoned our energy, stolen our identity, stolen our energy, stolen our money, stolen our wealth, their time period, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, whose symbol is the pirates, it's up. That's why you lost. But the Baltimore or Baltic Moors won, because it's time for the Aboriginal peoples, or the people, we the people all over the planet. You know, they say all people came from the original peoples here. That's what they say. They came from the original peoples here, and that, you know, you have some that's heavily melanated, and then you have some that have less melanin because of the genetic splicing and mixing with different genetic materials. So that's what they say. So if that's true, and we all came from, you know, one being, or one group of being, then we're all one. And that is in alignment with one of the universal principles, the principle of oneness, that we all came from source. We're one. All of us, all human beings, all species, plants, animals, we all came from source. Even if you came from even if you're a replica of the original, you're still from that. So we're all source, we're all one. And this is why it's important for us to align with each other, to be unified, because those beings who came to America and who came to the planet, period, masqueraded as humans. Particularly those who, the Baltic, like I don't want to say, but many of the Moors who came from Europe, even Christopher Columbus allegedly was heavily melanated. He wasn't Caucasian. Those Moors looked brown, and they masqueraded with the people, and they put they brought Europeans over here, some of whom were their sex slaves. Nobody wants to talk about how the Moors who control Europe, who are melanated people, actually brought sex slaves over here, or their slaves, or they brought Europeans over here. Many of whom were trying to escape what was going over there, and some of them were brought over here for a specific reason, and they put them over the Aboriginal people, the original people, and gave them benefits. And and I mean, I can't even blame them, because like, if you say, I'm going to give you benefits, all you have to do is my bidding. I can't, I'm not going to judge them. That's not my place to do. So this is why some of your people like Chief Pontiac Rod Hayes say that when you saw blackface in the movies, it wasn't to mock so-called black people or the Moors. What they were doing by putting blackface on them and shucking and jiving and dancing is saying, look, they might have us Caucasians or Europeans above the Moors or the Aboriginal people here, but I'm in blackface to let you know that there's dark beings, okay, like the Black Pope, the Black Mobility, dark beings who are behind the scenes, pulling the strings of even the Europeans that they brought here to so-called put over the Aboriginal people. So you have Moors, who were dark people that came from Europe, they came from all over the place, that landed here. Some of them were not real humans. Some of them were humans. Some of them were human hybrids. Some of them were negative entities masquerading as humans. And they blended in with the copper colored people, or the dark beings, or the dark human beings all over the world. Okay. And they put certain races or ethnicities over those people to cause racial wars and division. Hear me out. We're all just, we're all a part of their game. We're all victims of the game. And they pit us against each other so that we would take the focus off of them. So we're fighting black against white. And then they brought East Indians over to be over the people, East Indians and Asians to be over the people in the Caribbean island, so that they can have a caste system. Okay, they can have our European brothers and sisters at the top, and the Asians in the middle, and whether that be East Indian or Asians, and then the dark people at the bottom, the caste system. But who was at the top above the European brothers and sisters that we have? The Black nobility, dark beings, many of whom are not human. And this is who we're fighting against. This is why you have the Galactic Federation, the benevolent ones, who before were like, we don't interfere in human issues, have come back to help us all fight against those negative entities, because all of the harvesting of souls, harvesting of children, blood rituals, ritualistic, satanic, ritualistic abuse of children, sexual abuse, all this stuff, it was going on so much here and running rampant so badly here on this planet. The cries of those children were reaching the heavens, and the negative energy that was going on this planet was affecting the multiverse, because we're all one, we're all interconnected. It's the law of oneness. What affects one affects all. When an animal cries, it affects everything in the universe. When a plant is sad, it affects everything in the multiverse. When one child cries, it affects everything in the multiverse. And the ancestors with whom you have DNA, you share the same DNA of many of these galactic beings all over the multiverse. First, they've heard our cries and they've come back to help us. So my purpose of coming on is to say, this is the Feast of Harvest. It's a time to celebrate you reaping the harvest. It's a time to celebrate you reaping all the things that you've sown. It's a time to celebrate financial abundance, spiritual abundance, natural abundance, healing. It's a time to commemorate God's provision and his protective care, God's providence. That's what the raven represents. It represents providence, provision, protection. So that's why the Ravens won this game last night against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, whose symbol guys can correct me if I'm wrong, is the pirate. Their pirating time is over, family. That's all. If you can take nothing else away, take it. Their pirating time, these negative entities, these satanic forces and beings, think beyond the flesh and skin complexion, and think beyond race and ethnicity, and think beyond religion and creed and all that. Think beyond all that and see this is a spiritual warfare, a battle between good and evil, a battle for the planet and our resources, a battle for your organs, a battle for melanin, a battle for carbon. Carbon is in each thing that is living. We all have carbon. Now they do prefer heavily melanated organs, which is why they fought so hard against Hades. Why they call it Hades or hell, because the Haitians fought vehemently against those who tried to take away from them. It's why they flooded out Louisiana. They want those organs. It's why so many weapons are in the so-called Black community. They want those organs. They want that blood. They'll take any organs or any blood, but they prefer the highly melanated, even melanin, more melanin than what I have. They prefer those organs. Okay, this is why Queen Elizabeth focused on the Aboriginal or Indigenous children in Canada. And this is why she was brought to trial, but she never had to serve, because when she and her husband and her children were doing and her cohorts were doing child hunting parties where they will take the Indigenous people from Canada or the Aboriginal people and make them dress up and then hunt them down and chase them and then eat them and destroy them and harvest their organs and their blood. One of those children got away, and one of those children was able to testify in court that the Queen participated in that, her family, her cohorts, harvesting children, doing child hunting parties. But she not only did that, people all over the planet have been doing that. But when it was time for that child to testify in court, that child went missing. And the Queen was posthumously charged for that, as well as her husband and her bloodline, for hunting down these Indigenous children. So this is the time for we the people to stand up. It is our time to rule, reign, and have complete control of our own lives. It's called sovereignty, having control, over, reign, rule over your own life. It is our time, family. And we're right here at the climax, or the end, I should say. We're coming close to the conclusion of the Feast of Harvest, which is a time to commemorate God's provision, his providence, his protection, and abundance. So I'm looking forward to even more and greater financial news. I'm looking forward to a debt jubilee. I'm looking forward to the currencies revaluing. Again, remember I said an article just came out that says Saudi Arabia is amassing gold to themselves in preparation for the global currency reset. I have that article. I'll find a way to put it in the description section of this channel. I think they'll let me do that now. I have access at least to this channel to do that. And I'll try to put it in the community section as well. And I say try because when I've been having so many challenges, and I don't know why I'm having challenges coming on live before you all, or why I'm having challenges with internet, challenges with each computer that I get. I've been through about 6. I even borrowed my son's computer, and he said, Mom, my computer's running completely fine, but as soon as you logged on and you tried to go live or whatever you were doing, it froze my computer. He said, yeah, they're targeting you. He said, anything you touch just about when you try to go live, or, or you try to do certain things, you try to go for certain jobs, you're hitting a wall. Your YouTube channels, they took away every one of my channels. So now my 7th one, they took that one away, but they did allow me to go back. Now they're allowing me to come live on this channel, but 7 channels. And they even stolen money that I earned, that I was thousands that I'm supposed to be paid. That I actually saw the thousands calculated from the ads and revenues on YouTube that they just refused to pay me. Let alone all the thousands from my different 7 channels. What about the first platform when I had over 40,000 people? That's what I remember that I had. And people were telling me you should have way more than 40,000 subscribers when all of your videos at that time period 2 years ago were going viral. So they've stolen lots of money, but you know what? You can do that only for a short period of time, because you cannot stop the truth, and they cannot stop we the people, and they cannot stop the ancestors. They cannot stop the creator. We're going to keep forging on and declaring truth, righteousness, justice, peace, freedom, love, liberty, which also happens to be the precepts and principles of the Moors, or the Moor dynasty. So in conclusion, the Baltic Moors, or the Baltimore's, Moors mean dark people. The Baltimore Ravens, the raven being the symbol of providence, won during the Feast of Harvest, where we commemorate God's providence against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, whose symbol is the pirates, is because the time for pirating and siphoning our energy, stealing our identity, stealing our money, stealing our wealth, stealing our prosperity is over. We, the people, now have rule, reign, and control of our lives. And that's why the time right after the Feast of Trumpets, October the 2nd, we had 10 days of awe, 10 days of repentance, to work out our own soul salvation, to work out our relationships, to clean out our closets, to work it out and get along with our family and friends, ask for forgiveness and make it right. Those 10 days between the Rosh Hashanah, Feast of Trumpets, also known as New Year, October the 2nd, for the Hebrew people, for those 10 days leading up to the Day of Atonement, which was October the 12th. And then on that day, we fasted 24 hours, and then we got right with God. We became at one mentality with God. But you had 10 days to get it right with your neighbors, with your friends, your family members, your enemies. And then you make it right with God. And then 4 days later after that, or a few days later, yes, 4 days after October the 12th was the 16th. And you had the Feast of Harvest and Gathering, or Sukkot, which is also called the Feast of Booths, which commemorates the time when the children of Israel lived in the wilderness after they came out of slavery, built booths, B-O-O-T-H-S, which is a temporary shelter whereby God provided for them, even though they were in the wilderness, and he provided protective care, providence. We commemorate or remember that for 7 days, some for 8 days, between October the 16th and the 23rd, or if you do it the 8th day, which 8 is the number of infinity, 7 is God's complete number. Some people say 8 is the real complete number. It's the infinity, is the number of abundance. So if you celebrated the 8th day, that will end on the 24th, which so happens to be the conclusion of the BRICS summit, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa coalition that coalesced or came against the United States Incorporated and their central banking system. Now, having said that, the United States Incorporated is insolvent. They are bankrupted. Donald Trump was used to do that when he was in office, the first time in 2016. The United States Incorporated is bankrupt. It's insolvent. Their central banking system, called the Federal Reserve, is bankrupt and insolvent. The IRS is bankrupt and insolvent. And all those federal agencies, those federal bureau, the FBI, the CIA, the CPS, the HOA, whatever, IRS, all of those so-called federal bureaus, bureaucratic entities, they all were told to cease and desist. And when the Chevron doctrine was overturned by the Supreme Court this summer, that ended all 436, 32, however many of the 436 federal bureau agencies. They all were declared unconstitutional. They all were declared as participating in treason against we the people, and they all must cease and desist. The precursor to that was in 2014 when the Pope issued out motu proprio and wrote a letter to Obama, and he said it is over for the United States Incorporated and all those entities and corporations attached to it. We all must cease and desist, including attorneys, which attorney means to turn over your power to, attorneys, judges, and all federal entities. He said in 2013, 2014, both times when he wrote that letter to Obama, said we all must cease and desist. And he said in that letter, we have to turn over the land back to the Aboriginal people. We have to turn over the government back to their lawful republic, back to the Constitution for the American people. Now, the American people, that copper-colored so-called African-American Black people, even the Pope said we use them to pay off the debts, and then, you know, and made them servants, indentured servants and slaves to our corporation. But then we came back and enslaved everybody to pay off our debts. But in that letter, he said, we all must cease and desist. And he said, even the police officers or policy enforcers, because why? They enforce the policies of the corporation, statutes and codes of the corporation. They're not lawful constitutional sheriffs. They don't enforce the law, neither do attorneys or judges. So all attorneys and judges must stand down. This is why it's coming out now that you don't have to pass the bar to become a lawyer. Because passing the bar is the British accredited registry. If you have Esquire behind your name, and if you are an attorney, you may probably unbeknownst to you, were working for the British Crown. And you have a title of nobility. So all those Congress people that are writing laws, all of them, they have to step down, because you may not, according to our Constitution, have a title of nobility and create laws. That's constitutional. Why? Because if you have a title of nobility, you are saying, I work for the British Crown. If you have Esquire behind your name, if you are an attorney or a judge, you are stating, just by virtue of you passing the British accredited registry and having Esquire behind your name, you work for the British Crown. You work for the Pope, for the deep state. So you have to cease and desist. And your own Pope told you that in 2013, 2014, when he wrote a letter to Obama called Motu Proprio. If you want to look more into that, you can look it up, but you can go to my Rumble channel, RUMBLE.com. Go to rumble.com and type in Dr. Kia Pruitt. And then when you get to my page on Rumble, type in Motu, M-O-T-U, Proprio, P-R-O-P-R-I-O. And you'll see that I've read the letter of the Pope. So it's over for the deep state when the Supreme Court of the United States overturned the Chevron deference or Chevron doctrine, which stated basically that all these entities, these agencies that came up and said they were federal, the Chevron doctrine said they can create their own rules, their own laws, their own statutes and codes, and force us to go along with them, like having a driver's license to travel. That's against the Constitution. That's against our lawful rights. Having HOAs that say you can't grow your own fruits and vegetables, having the IRS to tax you to death, which you're not supposed to do according to the Constitution in our lawful republic. So the Chevron doctrine said these agencies could come up with any rules that they wanted to, and we had to abide by them. And if we fought against them and tried to appeal it or brought them to the courts, judges would say they would defer back to those agencies and say, you know what, you might have a problem with these rules and statutes and codes that they came up with, but they would defer right back to them and say, you have to follow them because they're experts. So when the Supreme Court of the United States overturned the Chevron doctrine or deference this summer, they said that any of these federal agencies who call themselves federal, there was 439, 32, something like that of them. And I listed them on one of my podcasts. They said that when these agencies created all these statutes, codes, and laws against we the people and forced us to do that, they were committing treason. So they declared them all unconstitutional. So they all have to cease and desist. So they said they committed treason. And when you brought them before the courts and the judge deferred back to them, Chevron deference, saying deferred back to them and say, yeah, you have to abide by any law, statutes, and codes that they put on you because they are the experts. Any judge that does that, they've committed treason. And any judge that knows of a judge that allowed that and didn't bring it before the president, they committed misprision of treason. And I've done a couple of videos breaking that down. So they all committed treason or misprision of treason. They all have to stand down. And so that overturning of the Chevron deference was the complete annihilation of the federal entities. the Federal Reserve, the FBI, all those, the CIA, IRS, all those 3-letter agencies. I have to look up that list for you and put it in the community section. It's over for them. They're all bankrupt. They all have to stand down. It's already been declared that, as well as the Supreme Court, whether it is Justice Clarence Thomas or his cohorts, they've already made a decision against Nancy Biden, Joseph Robinette, Biden, Nancy Pelosi, Kamala Harris, and 385 members of Congress. It just hasn't come out yet. But what did happen is last year, or maybe 2 years ago, when the Brunson brothers brought that case against them, the Supreme Court refused to hear it at first. And then Lloyd Brunson and his brothers, who were trumpet players, well-known, renowned, world-renowned trumpet players. I've done many podcasts talking about the Brunson brothers. They brought the case against Biden and Pelosi and Harris and 385 members of Congress. And I interviewed Lloyd Brunson. You can look at my Rumble channel. You'll see I did 2 interviews with Lloyd Brunson, who's a part of the Brunson brothers, who is a trumpet player. All this happens for a reason. When they brought that case against that whole group of people, Pelosi, Biden, Harris, 385 members of Congress, saying that they were a security breach to our nation and they may have committed treason, it was determined that if it found that they indeed participated in nefarious acts against we the people and made our country a security breach, then they had to be stripped of all their credentials, be judged at Guantanamo Bay by military tribunals, and never serve again and be completely stripped. Well, we're about to see public hangings on the television during this time after the emergency broadcasting system goes off and we're all in the house and we get the system alert on our phones and our computers and our television. We're about to see literal public hangings and hearings of these entities and these people. So the Supreme Court at first refused to hear it, but then Lloyd Brunson, who was a trumpet player, and his brothers found a loophole in the law that says if the Supreme Court is told of or made aware of any prospective or possible treasonous acts, if they refuse to hear the case, then the Supreme Court justices can be held for treason. So then the Supreme Court justices held a conference, and the determination was supposed to come out 2 years ago and then last year, but it never did come out publicly. Well, what did come out publicly was there was a writ of memorandus, you can fact check me, that was passed that said that Clarence Thomas can single-handedly make a decision on the Brunson brothers case against Joseph Robinette Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and Kamala Harris, and 300 members of Congress. Single-handedly. I've done podcasts on that as well. Then what you saw happening was justices recusing themselves or excusing themselves from the case because they said, I can't be biased. They stepped down and didn't want to hear the case. And that just so happened that came on the heels of the writ of memorandus stating that Justice Clarence Thomas can make that decision on his own. People started recusing themselves, the justices, from that case. Then I came back and announced that Clarence Thomas went missing. And this made public mainstream media news that went missing, meaning that he wasn't showing up at Supreme Court hearings. And they were saying, well, maybe he's going to hear the case from home. Maybe he's sick, but he wasn't even hearing the cases from home. Why? Because allegedly he was in hiding, being under the protective care, providence, and provision of the military who was protecting him because he most likely had already made a determination on that case. So this is all the stuff that's about to come out. We're about to hear it all. So that's why I say stay encouraged, keep your vibrations high. We're blessed to be alive. We're fortunate to be alive. It is our time to thrive. It is our time to teach our family and our friends members about what's going on. And it's our time to be there for them. So I hope I said something that brings you hope. I hope I said something to encourage you and to strengthen you. Okay, because this is the end times, but it's a great time. It's a time to celebrate. We're about to have a complete debt jubilee. We're about to have a freedom, prosperity, sovereignty, peace, abundance, wealth, a global currency reset, a reinstatement of countries' currencies, back to their normal value, backed by the gold, silver, palladium, platinum, and resources. And if you missed my podcast from maybe 3 or 4 days ago, maybe it was last week, I don't remember, right after I came from my vacation in Puerto Rico, I said that the prophet Kim Clement, who prophesied Trump would be the president before he even became president, prophesied that when you hear rumors, Netanyahu, was it Netanyahu? Yes, would nuke or drop bombs or attack Iran's secret nuclear power sources. When you hear rumors of that, then that means the Iraqi dinar is about to revalue and a lot of people are going to become wealthy. He prophesied that when you hear rumors of that. Well, a couple weeks ago, we heard rumors when, in fact, Netanyahu came on CNN and said himself out of his own mouth, we're about to attack Iran's secret nuclear power plants. So if you believe in prophecy, and if the prophecy is true, that means the dinar is about to revalue, which, by the way, correlates with al-Sudani, the prime minister, who said months ago, I'm going to increase the value of the Iraqi dinar the middle of October. Well, we just passed the middle of October. We're in the Feast of Harvest. You heard rumors that Netanyahu was going to attack Iran's nuclear power sources. BRICS, the Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa coalition, which inspired the whole world and 209 countries, all 209 countries, to drop the United States dollar for trade and use their own nation's currencies and gold, silver, palladium, platinum. The BRICS coalition, they're having a conference on right now, starting today to the 24th, right around towards the end of Feast of Harvest, which ends around the 23rd and 24th. All of this is happening at the same time. So prophecy has occurred, and now I'm just restating the prophecy and letting you all see that this is a time to recognize, commemorate, and glorify providence, provision, abundance, protection, and protective care. So that's it, family. I hope I said something to encourage your soul. And before I end, I'm going to look at what you all said and answer some questions if you all have time. You're welcome. People are saying thank you. Hi, Tracy. Oh, and I want to say thank you to Chief Mac, and to with Tristan, and I didn't write all your names down. Thank you to Valerie, Sister Cynthia, who to all these people that I'm listening, they sent a blessing through PayPal or Cash App. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. God bless you. Heaven smile on you is my prayer. So I appreciate you. It has been wonderful serving you. It's been wonderful being here with you. For those of you who want to continue to support my work, my Cash App is $MamaKia13. That's $MAMAKIA13. But another way you can support me is just by continuing to share the good news, encourage your family members, and by preparing and being ready. Get ready now so that you can be ready, and you won't have to get ready when the news comes out that the deep state is over. When the news comes out that Kamala Harris had a relationship with Diddy, when the news comes out that she was at those parties, when the news comes out that they're going to yank her out of there, when the news comes out that President Trump is still the president, when the news comes out that we probably won't have elections, so folks might go, a little wonky when the stock market collapses, if indeed that does happen. And people start panicking and run into the stores. We already know that because of the things that were going on at the shore and at the docks, the dock workers strikes. We already know because of that. We have seen some supply chain shortages. That's why restaurants are running out of food. Stores are running out of supplies. Some people might not know how to take all this information. So get ready now so you can be ready. You're supposed to stay ready so you don't have to get ready. Be proactive, meaning you take control of your life. You be responsible and accountable for your own life. And you take control so that you're not reactive. So you're not just having knee-jerk reactions and all of a sudden screaming and hollering and running around and rioting or just losing it. Like, be ready now. Like, Get you some cash in lower denominations and some silver, some coins on hand. If you're into silver, get some silver. If you're into gold, get gold, because gold is $2,740 something per ounce now. It's going up. Silver reached $35 per ounce early this morning. That's awesome. But it's also an indication that the dollar is completely losing its value, because a basic economic principle is that when the dollar loses its value, silver and gold increases in value. So those of you who are into silver and gold, you can go to your local coin companies, roll over, your 401ks, which you see the number 41, which is why the game last night was 41-30. And my Moorish brother Murray predicted it before it happened. He said the score would be 41-30. Because he understands numerology. 41, he said, represents king. It's a seat, it's an office. The kings, the people are taking power back. The aboriginals, they're taking their power back. They're taking their land back. They're taking their republics back. But that's why he said that's why they're telling you take your 41 Ks and rolling it over to gold, because we're moving back to the golden era. That's why we had the CORONA time period, because that word literally means crown, as in gold, as in consciousness, as in your crown chakra, as in ascending us into as in us ascending to Christ consciousness. So I know I'm rambling. I'm just going on and on. Just be ready, family. And thank you all so much for all you do to support me. Hi, Dana. Hi, my girl. Hi, Rosa. Hi, Tracy. God bless you. Hi, Cheryl. God bless you. Hi, from Sweden. Hi, Andreas. I love you. Thank you so much. Hello, Crystal. God bless you, Donna. Hi, Love Being Nubian. MM says, go Kia, just stopped in. Is it today the start of the BRICS conference? Yes, it is, between the 22nd and 24th, which is the end of the Feast of Harvest. Hey there, Dr. Kia from, I think you said Cleveland. Hello. Oh, homegirl, are you getting my Cash App? You tried to send me a Cash App days ago and my handle and nowhere to be found. I sent you it days ago. Oh, I'm so sorry. You checked into it? My Cash, I appreciate you. God bless you. My Cash App is $Mama Kia 13. $MAMA13. God bless you. Who is this? So the words are little on my phone. Jean Clee, Salderberry. Thank you so much. Mama Kia 13. Kia Heart Robert says, I love you, my darling. Hi, Crystal. Sending them fire emojis. Hi, James. God bless you, King James. You're so awesome. Amen. Donna says, True Rises says, hit the like button, family. Subscribe to the channel. Like the video. Share the video, please. Godfidence says hello and sends hearts. Hi, Adela. Hello, Buck Dot. God bless you, Blanca. Hello, Walk and Talk with Todd. You are amazing. Thanks for educating. God bless you. Thank you. Buck Doc said, cook. Teresa says, hi, sister. Hi. Jenna Lee says, yes, and Saudi Arabia sponsored Iraq to enter into the World Trade Organization. Yes, they just entered the World Trade Organization, which is huge, folks, she says. That's right. Since Iraq joined the World Trade Organization, and she is saying Saudi Arabia sponsored them, that means that they are prepared to be on the world stage to now do trade and commerce. They're taking the world stage now to participate in trade. Iraq is. Everything is in place. Everything for the Iraqi dinar to be reinstated back to their normal value, which many people are calling revalue. So the RV is taking place right now, or the RI, or the global currency reset, which is just a reset of the whole global financial system. But before you go into a new system that's going to be backed by gold, palladium, platinum, and other resources, you had to totally decimate the old fiat debt-based system, totally destroy it, burn it down. And then you go back to a system, which happens at the end of every empire. They rack up the debt, they spend up all the money, they use the credits usually to buy themselves resources, and then they crash the system and go back to a gold-backed system. That is called the crack up boom. Crack, C-R-A-C-K, up, U-P, Boom, BOOM, destroying the system. After you rack up the debt, spend the dollars, spend as much money as you can, print as much money as you can, destroy that system, and then go back to a gold system. This is happening right now. At the same time, BRICS is meeting and coalescing against the dollar, and at the same time that there was a Supreme Court ruling that said that state-sponsored banks can have their own charter, their own rules, and their own way of doing things separate from the Federal Reserve central banking system, and they can issue out their own gold-backed currencies, state-sponsored banks. What gives the Supreme Court the right to say that is the Republic. The Republic has been restored. Underneath the Republic, or by the virtue of the Republic being in place and according to the Republic and our Constitution for the Republic of the United States of America, each state in America operates as its own country, its own nation, which is why it has its own laws, its own lawmakers, its own flag, its own symbol. Each state is its own country. That's why it's important to vote and to work at the local level, at the state level. So again, the Supreme Court ruled that state-sponsored banks can have their own charter, their own rules, their own laws, separate from the Federal Reserve central banking system, and issue out their own gold-backed currency. This is also why the Sound Money Defense League came out finally and said that over 45 states have repealed the state taxes from the sales of precious metals. And I've been reporting on this since 2014 when I lived in Ghana, and I talked about how back then Ghana was, who is the Gold Coast, the West African nation, where there was a lot of gold production going on from Asian gold companies, European gold companies. I was like, something is happening with this gold. Everybody's mining gold over here. Nobody knows this. I was like, because I was living there. And I read excerpts from the book that says Africa is China's second continent because China was over there mining the gold. I said, then something is happening. And then I stated that at that time, there were only 13 states that recognized silver and gold as legal tender. And then after that, a few years after that, leading up to most recently, like earlier this year, I started reporting state after state that had joined those 13 states in repealing the state sales tax from the sales of precious metals. And I said back then, even when people were saying I was not telling the truth, even people who were selling gold, like I didn't understand why they were telling me I was lying. When I said, when you remove the state sales tax from the sales of precious metals, when you repeal the state tax sales from the precious metals, you are acknowledging gold and silver as money. You are aligning yourself with the Constitution that says the only thing that can be used to pay off debt is silver and gold. You are aligning with the First Amendment, Article 1, Section 10, that says that you can only use gold and silver for money, and with the Constitution that defines the dollar as a fixed weight in silver and as a fixed weight in gold. So again, I started reporting this in 2014 when it was only 13 states. And I came back, and as the states were adding, then when it was 41 states, I said, oh my God, now it's 41. Then it was 42, and then with Mississippi, then I think 43 might have been, I can't remember what state, and then 44 was, you had Wisconsin, and then 45 was the state of Kentucky. And I said, okay, this is it. At that time, when I said Kentucky has become the 45th state to repeal the state sales taxes from sales of precious metals, I said, we're there. We're on the gold standard, and nobody knows it here in America. So it's not BRICS just coalescing against the United States Incorporated. America is too. Which is why in 2018, Alexander Mooney from West Virginia, representative of West Virginia, came out with House Resolution 4504. Was it 4504? Yes. The Gold Standard Restoration Act. And then he came back, that was in 2018 under Trump, and he came back in 2021 with House Resolution, was it 9157? Then he came up with 23, oh my God, it's been a while since I reported, I think it's like 2345. All of those called the Gold Standard Restoration Act, in preparation for defining the dollars of fixed weight in gold. So now the Sound Money Defense League has come out with an article that says over 45 states, more than 45 states, have repealed the state sales tax from the sales of precious metals, which which means that 45 states have reclaimed silver and gold as money. And that's why King's World, KINGSWORLD, came out with the article February 2023 that says the world is hurtling back to using gold as money. The world. And I announced that before the article came out, and I announced that on the day it came out, and I'm still announcing it now. We're all acknowledging gold and silver as money. We've moved into the CORONA area, the golden era, where our crown chakras are being activated, where we're ascending to our Christ consciousness, or highest selves, our highest consciousness, where we're moving to higher dimensions, and we'll be using gold and silver as money, because gold and silver are actually resources, and they're minerals, and they're metals that raise our frequencies. They heal planets. We have silver and metal, silver and gold receptors in our body and in our brain, which is why scientists have come up with healing modalities to address things such as brain eating amoebas by using silver and silver technology. We have those receptors in our body, in our brain, which is why some medical doctors, when you are in pain, tell you to put copper braces on your knees, copper bracelets around you, which is why people tell you ingest monoatomic gold, silver, and copper, colloidal gold, silver, and copper. By the way, if you're interested in getting monoatomics or colloidal silver, gold, and copper, all that, which destroy VIRUSs on contact. That's why they took away the silver. That's why they have you touching dirty money. Wealthy people don't touch that stuff. But if you touch silver, gold, and palladium, platinum, copper, it really destroys certain diseases, VIRUSs on contact. If you want to know where to get it, you can get it from, I get it from the Meta Center Chicago. The Meta, METACENTER. Look up the Meta Center Chicago.com, or just Google Meta Center in Chicago. You see all these colloidals, colloidal silver, colloidal gold, colloidal copper, monoatomic gold, monoatomic silver, monoatomic copper, and actual copper bracelets, and herbs, organic heirloom seeds. We've had Dr. Tony Vortex, who is a protege of Dr. Delbert Blair, both master metaphysicians, on our podcast many times to talk about these things. Go to the Meta Center, Chicago.com, get your stuff. And then at checkout, put in, gosh, it's been a while, I think it's Dr. Kia, somebody if that knows, I think it's DRKIA 2024 as your code, and you'll get a significant percentage of discount. So that's the medicinechicago.com, or just Google the Medicina, get those things, and at checkout, put in the code Dr. Kia, DRKIA 2024. If you're interested in silver and gold, or rolling over your 401k into precious metals, you can go to your local coin dealer, Google it, or look up numismatics near me, or you can go to the affiliate for whom I worked. And since I'm not doing podcasts, I haven't been selling it, since I've been having challenges. You can go to Miles Franklin by calling them, and I gave the wrong number, I think the other day. Is it 952-929-7006? That's 952-929-7006. Or you can go to info@milesfranklin.com and get your silver and gold. They have storage programs. You can roll over your 401k into gold. You could take possession of some of that gold, or you can put it in the storage. Let them know that Dr. Kia Pruitt referred you, and I guarantee you will get the best prices in the industry. Davis Emmanuel says, I love you, Kia. I love you back. Please hit the like button. Crystal says, can you please talk about what happened to Mike Lindell? I don't know. I'm sorry. Baltic Moors, David says, is what Baltimore means. Baltic Moors, yes. The Moors are the more, usually the swarthy people, the dark people, dark complected people, all across the globe, the so-called organic people or original people. Some people say we all came from I don't know what her name is, but this heavily melanated being that they found, I think, did they find her? They found her somewhere, Africa, America. I don't know where they found her, but Moors, the Aboriginal people, a lot of them were heavily suppressed. They had their identity stolen. A lot of them were annihilated. They put drugs in the communities, guns, weapons in the community so they can destroy each other. And then what these beings intended to do was to deal with the copper colored people, or the darker, even dark melanated people, heavily melanated people, heavily carbonated people, and suppress them as much as they could, take out as many of them as they can, and then they were going to go for our other brothers and sisters. Okay, so they plan to do this to everybody. But the Moors have won the war against those negative entities, because the battle that's going on here, remember, as above, so below, the battle that's going down here on this plane actually started in other planets, in other places and dimensions. It's just playing out here in our reality. So as above, so below. So if we want to affect what's going on in other planets negatively, we keep doing negative things. But if we want to affect it from a spiritual level, we have to all unite. We have to unite and send positive energy. We have to fast. We like literally give up and sacrifice certain things for a time period in order to bring down or suppress the carnality, the physical part. So this is why many spiritual organizations or spiritual, I don't know what you call them, like, I don't want to call them religions, but for lack of a better word, they talk about fasting, eating clean, eating healthy. So fasting is just going for a period of time without food and or water, or going without something. You're sacrificing something. Typically when we would fast, we would go without food, and sometimes without sex, without pleasure, TV, anything, that can distract you. And we would spend that time meditating and in prayer, or concentrating, focusing on the reality that we want to bring in. We have to unite and do that, because the scripture, whether or not you believe in the scripture, but I think it's 2 Chronicles 7:14 says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven, and then will I heal their land. So whether you believe it's a God, a creator, the ancestors, or angelic beings, a lot of times, if you're not so focused on yourself and satisfying your flesh by entertaining yourself, overindulging in food, overindulging in a lot of entertainment and pleasure, you suppress the carnality, you suppress that part of you, and then the spirit man rises. You become more conscientious or conscious of spiritual things. You can see better. Your psychic powers or your ability to intuit becomes stronger. One of the ways that the old scripts would say it is the carnal mind is enmity or enemy against God, or the carnal mind is enmity with God. The carnal mind thinking about pleasure all the time. What can I do for myself to please my flesh, to overindulge in sex and food and eating and pleasure, entertainment? All that overindulging in that is an enemy with the spiritual part of you, the part of you that wants to rise in consciousness, the part of you that wants to live and act and behave as an ascendant master, like the Christ, like the Buddha, like Krishna and others, whether they were real or not. This, left up to debate for some circles. We are now in a time where we can be ascendant masters living in higher states of consciousness. But that means we have to be united and not focus so much on being concerned with the ditties, the parties, the entertainment, all that stuff. While we were focused on all that, there were some laws that were passed that we need to really learn about. Okay? But this is a high spiritual time, a high vibrational time. And that's why I've come on today to talk to you all so that we can all be on the same level. You're welcome. I can't see something. Live in the now says, thank you, Dr. Kia. You're welcome. Hello, Justo. You're welcome, Jackie. Yes, we have avatars walking amongst us. Thank you, Prolific. MM says, thank you, Miss Kia. The Spanish Moors led Columbus to this part of the world. Thank you so much. The Spanish Moors led Columbus to this part of the world. Absolutely. The Spanish Moors, which, you know, when I was in Puerto Rico, they told us we know about our Moor. We know about our Moorish or so-called African identity, our melanated identity. We know that our original people were heavily melanated, is what they said. And the Spanish Moors went all over the Americas and led Columbus right here. And unfortunately, those people in power lied to us and told us we came from African slave ships, when the truth is, according to my research, that many of us Aboriginal copper-colored people, original Americans, were sent to Africa and Caribbean and the Caribbean and other places. But they're lying to us. The original Indian was dark and heavily melanated. The original European is dark and melanated. The original Mexican is dark and melanated. The original everybody is dark and melanated. They just spliced our genes, mixed us up, did some work in labs, or did some splicing, and we interbred and intermarried, and now we all different shades. But the original Aboriginal, which just means original, ab means from, doesn't mean against. The etymology means from. Original were heavenly melanated beings. When Columbus came here, according to the stories, they discovered dark people. Even when you read the colonists, so-called colonists, or the Europeans who came over, you read the accounts, they said the people had wide noses, tawny complexion, dark brown complexion, nappy hair. Some of them have bones going through their noses, and they look, even the old pictures, they depict them looking like me, copper colored, ranging from a lighter complexion of me to dark burnt brown looking. But they lied and told us we came from Africa. They also lied and said that the people who crossed the Bering Strait, the so-called Native American, Native means you're not from here, okay? So the Native Americans, they would tell you those are the original people in America, that those are the Aboriginal people that Christopher Columbus found here. They're not. They were trying to escape the same thing that our European brothers and sisters were trying to escape in Europe when Columbus came here. They were trying to escape those galactic beings, some of which were humans, some of which were human hybrids, most of whom were not humans, who were eating their children, harvesting their organs, doing things to their blood. Those people came here. They were trying to run away from that foolishness. And then some of the Moors that came over here brought their sex slaves, who were Caucasian women. They won't tell that story. Okay, I have Caucasian friends who are, now I sound like a racist. I have Caucasian friends, but I have friends who are Irish, who are Slavic. And they said, my people were enslaved, but nobody talks about that. Are we supposed to get reparations too? And I said, absolutely. You have to be repaired and restored for what happens to you. Everybody on the planet has been enslaved at some point. But what they did when these people crossed the Bering Strait and came over here, they allowed them, the Native Americans, Native means you came from somewhere else, to steal our identity and to claim themselves as the Aboriginal people. They allowed them to take the land. They allowed them to take the government benefits. Not only them, but some of our European brothers and sisters called $5 Indians. They allowed them to pay $5 to be on the Dawes rolls, to take the land, to take the identity, to take the resources that the government was handing out, and wouldn't give it to some of our ancestors who look like me. Okay, that's rule. I mean, we know this. Everybody should know this by now. All that information is coming out. But the truth is, the original slave allegedly in America were the Slavics that came here, the Irish even that came here, and even the Italians, which is why they had to do. That's why we had the Italian mafia. The original ones were dark complected, and specifically the Sicilians, they still are in touch with their Africanoid or dark ancestry. When they came here, they were the Italians and some of our Irish brothers and sisters, the Slavics, all of them, they were the first ones called the ninja word. And they were treated as such. And they weren't allowed to thrive, which is why they even they were living in the first hood Okay, they were living in those neighborhoods, the slums. They were the first ones. People that look like me, we weren't enslaved. We were landowners. We were from this land. We're the ones, all these elaborate buildings that they saying, were already, no, that the recent people did, or the so-called African slaves did. No, our ancestors did that. We were always from the Americas. We've always been here. And the Moors that came, they may have also done some of that. But some of our European brothers and sisters, when they came here, they were enslaved. They weren't allowed to participate in the economy. They were mistreated. They were treated as indentured servants. They were treated as slaves. They lived in slums, and that's why they had the mafia, drug rings, and stuff like that, because they couldn't participate. They weren't allowed to participate in the economy. But the powers that be said, you know what? If we really want to have some financial gain from all this, what we'll do is we'll call them white too. The Irish, the Italians, the Slavics, we'll call them white too. They weren't called white. First of all, white and black is a legal status. Black means you have no standing in law. The first people that came here, who were the slaves from Europe, they had black status. Okay, the original people here had white status, because white, blanco, white actually was a symbol for purity, and it was also the symbol of the landowners. It was a symbol of the original people. It meant you had legal standing, lawful standing. You can participate in writing laws, creating laws. You can participate in a global economy. That was the legal status of people who look like me. Everything we've been taught is flipped in reverse. But then they flipped that and they said, okay, the Europeans now can have white status. This is why Africans, Indians, I don't care where they come from. When they come here, they don't call themselves black, because they're not black. They're like, we have standing in law. Black is not an ethnicity. It's not a nationality. That's why it boggles my mind when they say Kamala Harris is not black. What does that even mean? Okay, that's neither here nor there. She's not American, first of all, okay? We've already done podcasts on how she can't be president, because according to the Constitution, you have to be from the natural born, which she was native. If she was born, he was native born, meaning her people came from somewhere else, not natural born. And you have to be subject to the jurisdiction thereof. It's not just about proximity, it's about allegiance. Because her parents came from somewhere else, by blood, by proxy, she has allegiance to their countries, okay? But the natural born people here had white status. Everybody else had black status. They flipped it on us. I'm not black. That means, according to the law and law dictionary, means you have no standing in law. It's the status of a slave, void of color, void of law, void of civilization. So if you look deeply into your family's history and documents, you'll see they were landowners. They lied to us. So our European brothers and sisters that came over here, they first had black status. We had white status. They flipped it on us. The Irish, the Italians, and some of the Sicilians, and some of the other Europeans that were here who were not allowed to participate in the economy were then given white status so that they can increase their numbers and their power. This wasn't something that European people came up with. This is something that the beings in power who are not human came up with to cause division and infighting. Okay, we've all been enslaved, is my point. Grand Rising. Hi, Charles. You're welcome, Sister Donna. Hi, family. Grand evening to you all. The truth will prevail, Sister Crystal says. You're welcome. Somebody says, Doctor, you're the best. Thank you, Daryl. Yes, and my cash app is $ Mama Kia 13. That's $ MAMAKIA 13. $ Mama Kia 13. You're welcome. Peace, Dr. Kia. How can I get more information on becoming a lawyer? Yes, according to the new laws, you do not have to pass the bar exam. That's actually coming out right now. I'm not sure. I'll look for those documents. Because some of those articles actually do say what you have to do. I'll look for that. So not only must the attorneys turn over your rights, and judges, now they have to step down. Also, policy enforcers, police officers, they will have to step down, because according to the Constitution, only the sheriffs enforce the law. Okay, but this is why all across America, especially in small towns, but all across America, police officers and departments are shutting down. You can fact check me. I've done podcasts on that and presented the articles. They're shutting down, and those roles and responsibilities are being turned over to the sheriff's department. And anybody that still wants to serve and enforce law, not policy, statutes, and codes of the incorporation, they will have to be retrained. This is why Donald Trump says, no, we don't want to defund the police. What we want to do is weed out the bad apples and then retrain them. He was preparing you for Nasara. He was preparing you for the republic being restored. He was preparing you for this time where the police departments will be shut down, and those that remain, if they want to serve, they have to be retrained and duties transferred over to the sheriff department, which is constitutional law enforcers. Sister Susanna says, so right, my sister. Thank you. On point. Thank you. Thank you, Sister Julia. Thank you. See continuity of government with Derek Johnson, Susanna says. So I'm not going to bore your patience. Peace back to you, Sister Sukkot. Spart, I think that's your name, says the Bolivar, which is the Venezuelan currency, is trending up. All right, Venezuelan Bolivar is trending up. You are a lot, I think Louise is saying. You're welcome, sister. Hit the like button. Truth says, you're welcome. Love Being says, peace and love to you all. Thank you for saying I'm amazing. So are you. I'm so grateful for each and every one of you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your love and support. Oh, Sister Sagira, I can't see you. Your name says, I'm glad I found you. Thank you so much. Gold and silver are Yah's. Somebody says, the gold and silver are mine. This is what the scripture says. They shall come with us to Jerusalem as we go home, says Susanna. I don't see any questions. You guys are welcome. You're amazing. What did ChatGPT won't answer my question about the repeal of taxes on precious metals. Just look up your state and say, so I'm from Kentucky. Kentucky repealed state taxes from the sales of precious metals, and you'll see Kentucky became the 45th state that repealed the state taxes from the sales of precious metals. Or go to my Rumble channel and rumble.com and look up Dr. Kia Pruitt. Look at my channel. Maybe you can type in states repeal taxes. There's an article that was published by the Sound Money Defense League that says over 45 states reclaim silver and gold as money. Or just Google your state and say repeal state taxes, or did my state repeal state taxes from the sales of precious metals? If they did, that means they've reclaimed silver and gold as money. Good day, Dr. Kia Almighty says. So that's it, family. Are you able to cast a few currencies in at the moment? I wouldn't cash anything right now. Maybe you could, but I wouldn't until it's been announced that we've had a global currency reset, because you want to wait until all these entities, or as many as possible, have been arrested and judged. Because if you do it before that time, then these entities can steal your wealth and re-empower themselves. So wait till the complete collapse and the announcement and reinstatement of the global currency reset is what I'm going to do. Okay. Maybe you can go ahead and get a higher exchange rate on your currencies. I can't tell you what to do. I would suggest, or I think it would be a good idea to wait to know that these negative entities have been arrested, because again, they can steal your wealth and re-empower themselves, and we don't want that to happen. So are the courts acknowledging the changes in the handling of the court cases? I'm not sure. Jamie says it's 50 states now that have reclaimed silver and gold as money. So we're all on the gold standard. I did a podcast 2 years ago where I said America has put forward the goal, America and Australia, to pay off the debt behind the scenes, and that we're secretively on the gold standard, but they're not telling you that. All they're doing is saying the debt ceiling is going up and up, which, on paper it was, but that I said, all this stuff has been done away with, but they're allowing it to play out in the public to look like, that they're still in power or whatever, because this way by letting Nancy Pelosi, do whatever she did, by letting Kamala Harris make herself look like a fool, and Joe Biden, people are starting to wake up and say, oh my God, I see what's been going on. By allowing the Diddy Chronicles to come out, by allowing Epstein and all that other stuff, Weinstein before him, by allowing all this information to come out, then people are waking up. But remember, Michael Jackson told us this a long time ago. He said, Tommy Mottola is the devil. He said, but they thought I was a fool. They thought I didn't know. He said, I own all my stuff and Sony. They didn't either got rid of him or he just stepped off the scene in order to, just go behind the scenes and step out of the limelight. But he been told us about Tommy Mottola. So if you want to talk about Diddy, let's talk about Tommy Mottola. Let's talk about the Playboy Bunny Mansion. It's not true that he only was with women that were of age. He was with children too. Like, we used to know this. We knew all the stuff that was going on in the Getty Museum and underneath the tunnels. We knew that Nancy Pelosi, the Gettys, and the Browns and the Newmans are all related. We're doing nefarious things. Like, I don't know why all of a sudden we're acting shocked. Many of us knew this. It just didn't mean anything to us, or a lot of people were so concerned with their own lives, which I know, that we were just putting off the Alley Carters, the people who are come out, the John Benet Ramsey's, all these people that were coming out saying that they were molested, the child actors, the Britney Spears, people were just calling them crazy. Right? We were so busy enjoying our lives or working like slaves that it just didn't come on our radar. And allowing mainstream media to make mockery of them and saying they're lying and calling them crazy, like Anna Nicole Smith. We just allowed this to go on because we were complicit, even if it wasn't willingly. Okay, by not acknowledging it or by being too busy, we can never let this happen again. That's why they allow all this foolishness to play out. So I want you to stay encouraged. If you're trying to get a hold of Chief Mac, email him at unityinmotion45@yahoo.com. UNITY45@yahoo.com. Okay, email him, let him know that you're waiting to hear from him. If you sent him a Cash App, I can't remember. I think is it Judah Allen or Allen Judah 47? I think it's Alan Judah 47 is his Cash App, but just send him an email, unityinmotion45@yahoo.com. Let him know you're trying to get a hold of him to create your trust that will allow you to operate in private outside the jurisdiction of the United States Incorporated. But the United States Incorporation is defunct, insolvent, and will go away, even publicly. Somebody says, should you try to get a mortgage now or wait till after the announcement? You guys answered that question. The property values will come down. They're coming down, even in Florida. They're coming down now in many states already. The automobile crash actually started happening in the summer. So those prices are coming down. Oh yeah, the value of your car now. Remember when they doubled values of cars 2-3 years ago? Now they're coming down. So the automobile crash already started, and I reported on that, I think the beginning of this year. Property value will come down. As a matter of fact, Evergrande, which is China's largest real estate entity, filed bankruptcy in America. Interesting. 400 million people defected from the Chinese Communist Party 2 years ago and had a celebration called Taidong in New York. What else? Over 400 and something corporations and companies filed bankruptcy 2 years ago, and many more filing now. Many banks, we have 5 great big banks that collapsed over the last year and a half, and more banks are collapsing, and they will continue to collapse, particularly if they're not Basel III and IV compliant, which, by the way, Basel III compliancy means they had to recognize gold as a tier 1 asset, which means they had to recognize gold as money. It also means that banks had to become transparent, and that they no longer could steal our money and trade our money once you put money into the bank. It also means that these banks now have to operate as a wealth management system and not as the banks that they were, and they cannot be a part of the Federal Reserve. And also another part of Basel III compliancy, which is something that I reported on, I want to say beginning of this year, was that banks had to become tier 2 ready or tier 2 compliant. So part of Basel III compliancy, again, recognize gold as a tier 1 asset, become transparent, operate in benevolency, cannot steal money, and they had to become tier 2 compliant. And this is why last year I made an announcement and read several articles that said banks met globally to determine being tier 2, their tier 2 appetite, or being tier 2 ready all over the world. They met globally to determine whether or not they were tier 2 ready. And then it defined in those articles what tier 2 ready meant. It meant that they were prepared to receive tier 2 assets, which are also foreign investments, i.e. foreign currencies. They met globally to determine their preparedness to receive your tier 2 foreign currency assets. And the articles went on to state, as I said in my podcast, that when those banks met globally, they stated they needed these tier 2 assets in order to go against, or to make sure they would not go into bankruptcy. Receiving these tier 2 assets will, what it says, support the financial health of the banks to make sure that they would not go bankrupt. These banks need your tier 2 assets. They met globally to make sure they were ready, and they're already ready to receive your assets, which will prevent them from going bankrupt, and what it says, something like maintain the health of these banks, which are really wealth management systems or centers now. So that was a part of Basel III compliancy, and all those that are not Basel III compliant, they're not transparent, they won't follow these new regulations, they will not, those that did not recognize gold as a tier 2 asset, a tier 1 asset, or recognize gold as money, and those that were not prepared to receive your tier 2 assets, which are your foreign currencies, they had to close. Chief Mac will answer email. He got sick, and I'll leave him up to tell the story, but he's healthy now. He's feeling much better. I talked to him this morning. I will remind him. He had an influx of so many hundreds of email coming from all over the world to create these special, what I call special trusts, to help you operate outside of the jurisdiction of the United States. So this powerful trust, and I ran this by a local attorney who does estate planning, and asked him if he heard of these trusts. He said those are the most powerful documents he's ever come into. He said he knows people who use these trusts to operate outside the jurisdiction. He's like, man, when you know how to use that, he said you can't put you in jail. You can operate on the land according to the republic. You don't have to have licenses to do certain things. You don't have to have a driver's license. He's like, that's the most powerful document on the planet. So I'm not sure, where we are with those moving forward, since the United States corporation has been declared as insolvent, at least behind the scenes. So maybe, what they say is, operate now in the system as we know it the best way you can, and then when the official announcements come out, then you can behave accordingly or adjust yourselves accordingly. Property taxes would do away with all taxes. And now they're even saying that. Now I think Elon Musk even said that. Now all these taxes, they will be done away with. And the only tax we will have is a 14% tax on large ticketed items. No more income taxes, no more property taxes, no more of these taxing. It's against the Constitution, against the law, it's against us as sovereign beings. All that will stop. So that's it, fine family. I love you all. I need to go. It's been 2 hours and 2 minutes. My name is Dr. Kia Pruitt. I hope I said something to raise your vibrations and inspire you to create the most amazing, magnificent life that you desire and deserve. If you desire to support my work, then you may send a cash app to $Mama Kia 13, $MAMAKIA13. And if you're interested in getting gold and silver, contact Miles Franklin Precious Metals Company at info@MILESF, as in Frank, RANKLIN.com, or you can call them at 952-929-7006, or you can send him a Twitter on X at Miles Franklin. Let them know that Dr. Kia Pruitt referred you, and you get the best prices in the industry. I love you, family. Happy harvest season. I'm so excited about us entering into a season of wealth, abundance, prosperity, and peace. Go and make this a great day. I love you all so much from the depths of my soul and the bottom of my heart. You're very welcome, Sister Stephanie. You're very welcome, family. It's my great, great pleasure to serve you. I love you. Peace, family. You're welcome. You're welcome. Meow, meow, meow. Bye bye, family. Take care. I love you. Peace.